Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And this week we have a very special guest. We have the lead singer of Number of the Beef, no less. We would like to welcome Tom Hynes to the No Name Music Cast. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm very tired. Yeah, this week has been a long month. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Just fresh from band practice. So, yeah, apologies if I'm sounding a bit hoarse.
For those who don't know, there is a very specific time difference from our UK friends that we bring on here. And me and Tim had brought a few on. Tim understands better than I do because he's been between both. But yes. What time is it for them right now, Tim? What?
Yeah, it's about midnight. Yeah, just got midnight.
Fantastic. So you're on the show tonight. You're going to be running through some songs that you like and songs that come from your band Number of the Beef. But more importantly, you have a big event coming up with the band Number of the Beef. Can you tell us a little bit about the band and a little bit about the event that's coming up?
Okay, so we're a rock and metal covers band. Like, I formed the band a couple of years ago. We have one surviving founding member as well as myself.
Mm-hmm.
Two surviving founding members, but yeah. And we've been through a lot of band members since then, which has sort of hampered progress a bit. But in that time, we've still managed to do quite a few cool things, even though progress has been interrupted due to personnel changes. But it's a lot of fun. We do songs that are somewhat a bit more eclectic in choice than you would usually find from most covers bands. Like, you'll find hundreds of bands that cover The Killers and all that, Oasis, etc. But we don't do that.
I looked at the stuff that you sent through about your band, and I was looking at some of the clips also on YouTube, and I was very pleased to see the kind of music that you were playing. Now, I gigged the West London music scene extensively, and I left in 2011. But it seemed to be that you were right. A lot of the local bands that play in the venues that you play in that kind of area play much the same idea, give or take. And occasionally you might get a Killing in the Name of, or occasionally someone might throw a heavier song in. But I mean, I see you doing Creeping Death, you're doing good stuff. This is the kind of music that I like to listen to.
I like to listen to Killing in the Name of and Britney Spears. We can all like both, everybody.
Yeah, that's fully valid, yeah.
I was just making a joke, but that's who I am as a whole, Tom. I like both, but anyway.
So is it your love of heavier music that takes you down this path and just want to be a little bit different than every other sort of band that's out there playing out there right now?
Well, yeah. So when my previous band, Malefice, split up in 2015, which we can talk a bit more about later, I sort of took a hiatus from music because I was a little bit jaded from the entire thing and just the industry in general, it's very fickle, etc. I just needed time away.
No one has ever said the music industry is fickle. Where's that coming from, Tom? I've never heard that once in my entire life. Sarcasm, everyone. Continue. Not once have I ever heard that anyone has ever had a fickle situation with it.
Yeah, I just got a bit burnt out from it. So it was a few years later, a few friends of mine were like, do you fancy putting a band together? And I was like, yeah, you know what? Why not? And so I tried with them to put a lineup together, and I tried to get my best mate Dave to sing for us, but he wasn't available to do it for one reason or another because he didn't have the time. So I was like, well, you know what? I'll have a go at vocals then. So we did that for a bit, and it was cool. Like, it was a fun band. They just started gigging again as well without me, which is great. And we gave them a gig not so long ago called Cluster Truck. And yeah, it was a fun night, and I'm really glad they're gigging again. But then, because they're quite busy themselves, like, I became like a bit frustrated because we weren't practicing enough, we weren't gigging enough. So I put this band together with the view to like more gigs, like doing more challenging stuff that I wanted to do, like the ideas I had, and basically, yeah, that's how Number of the Beef came to be.
And in this band, you obviously are the lead singer. You're not playing any instruments in this band, is that correct?
No, I was playing bass and singing for Cluster Truck for a time, but I found that I'm not very good at playing and singing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't sing, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I do a Love Shack now and again, but, I'm not really a singer. But on the occasions I've attempted to do it, it is really hard. And I'm sure if you're playing bass, especially if you're playing the kind of challenging material, which you are, and you're trying to lock in with a drummer who's playing patterns and locking in a drummer doing double bass stuff, and you're trying to lock in as a bass player and sing at the same time. I mean, you have to be Geddy Lee to do that, and there's only one Geddy Lee.
There is only one Geddy Lee, yeah. I tried playing bass and singing, but there were two songs. Well, one that really tripped me up that I really wanted to do was Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy, because Phil Lynott was some kind of player, and if you listen to the actual guitar and bass parts for Jailbreak and then listen to the vocal rhythm, it's completely out of sync with each other. And I tried sort of miming along, and it completely threw me.
So I'm raising my hand and no one can see me. As a vocalist, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's this weird thing where I played, so I don't know how much I've talked to you about this, Tom. I think I have a little bit. I play the piano. That is my main instrument. I have taken drum lessons for years, and I do play the ukulele. The ukulele is like the most basic instrument ever. I realize that everybody plays it, but I did enjoy picking it up, right? I loved a good string instrument that I could put music out on. And one of the hardest things is what Tom's talking about. When the song is about, like, I don't know if it's the greatest way to say this. I know that if there's somebody out there who is a music theorist is going to yell at me, but Tom knows about when it's about a half a second behind every note. It is the hardest thing ever to sing. And I know exactly what you're saying, because you can't quite understand the rhythm in your own brain, and you're trying to match what the original singer did, but you don't want to quite do that because you want to make it your own.
Yeah.
You want it to be your song. But that song that Tom is talking about is about maybe a quarter to a half a second too behind the note. Behind the note is the best way I can explain it. And if you don't know what I mean, I don't know how to tell it to you. You just got to figure it out for yourself. Try singing it. Does that make sense, though, Tom? It's the hardest thing ever, because I am a vocalist. Tim knows I'm a vocalist. That's like my heart, my bread and butter. I've been singing since I was like 6. And it's the hardest thing ever. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was just trying to sort of mime along playing while singing along to it, and I was just like, nah, what is this? It's like the chorus is fine, just about, but the verses are just a nightmare.
But the worst part is when you're playing it and you're in one rhythm and then you try to sing it, and so that completely half a second later, you're like, I can't. My brain cannot do two things at once.
So I saw the version of Number of the Beef doing that on Instagram. And it must be said that the band is kicking. I love that. I mean, it's a shame I'm not in the UK and I can't come and see you, to be honest.
We've kept Jailbreak in the set for a long time. I think that was one of the first ones we sort of jammed. So I was like, it's reasonably easy, providing we don't have anyone playing and singing, like in the verses. It's one that we usually always play. Apart from in the special cases of like the specialist sets we're doing, which we've got for the gig next Friday and then for download. But yeah, we'll get on to that in a while.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned download. So that is the big thing that's happening for you soon. When is the Download Festival going to take place?
So the main festival is 14th to 16th of June, but we've been booked on the District X lineup, which is sort of the lead up to the festival for everyone who's camped. Mm-hmm. So the stage we're on is the Doghouse. It's in the like sort of camping village. It's a big top as far as I've seen, because I've seen photos of like a few bands that have played it before. Mm-hmm. And we're on Thursday the 13th around lunchtime-ish.
Okay. You might be able to answer me this question. I always remember growing up, it was the Donington Monsters of Rock, and then at some point it got turned into the Download Festival. Is that because the venue changed, or did they just change the name just because?
I think it's marketing. That's pretty much why it changed to Download. Like, it seemed like a quite forward-thinking name for the time. In essence, I think it's near enough the same thing, but obviously it's on a much larger scale now. And I mean, although I know it's changed, the site itself has changed a lot over the years. Like, the first time I played it with Malefice back in 2008, the stage we played on was the second stage, and that was sort of on the tarmac. Whereas now the second stage is on the grass, and it's not a lot smaller than the main stage.
And you mentioned Malefice, which was your previous band. Now that was a signed band, and you toured with all kinds of people. Is that correct? Yeah,
we have 3 albums released and 2 EPs, like all on Spotify. We were signed to Anti-Culture Records originally, which is like quite an underground metal label in the UK that's no longer about. Then we signed to Metal Blade for 2 albums, I think it was. And then we released the couple of EPs we finished off with on a smaller label.
Okay, and you was predominantly a bass player in Malefice, is that correct?
Yeah, and I did some backup shouting here and there, but I never did any proper singing like I did now. Like, the singing has come basically from me traveling about in my car and putting songs on and then singing along to them. That's how I've learned to sing. Like, I've not had any vocal lessons or anything like that.
My favorite part of that is Tom saying, I did some backup shouting. I want everybody to know that that's what it. No, that is a lot of what people do in bands. And I just want to put that out there. That was an amazing statement. If anybody didn't catch that, I love it.
Well, I pulled up some of the music from your previous band on Spotify because I'm a recent convert to the world of Spotify, which you've probably heard on the podcast if you've listened to it at all. And that is some rocking music, and I can see that it needs some backup shouting in places.
Just to carry it along a little bit more, yeah, sure.
I mean, backup shouting is underrated. Let's be honest, everybody.
Yeah, very underrated.
So what we're going to do is I've asked Tom to pull out some tracks to discuss on this episode. He's going to go through some of the songs that are in the Number of the Beef set list, some music that influenced him, and also just some songs that he likes, which is normally how we do these episodes. We normally call these episodes the soundtrack of your life, but this is like soundtrack of the beef, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy to go with that.
Okay, well, we'll call the episode Soundtrack of the Beef.
Cool.
All right, so what do you have for us as your first song?
Okay, so first song, Metallica, Seek and Destroy. It's one we actually do, but it's also one that kind of introduced me to metal as well. Because believe it or not, I got into metal via wrestling.
Okay.
So when I was a kid watching WWF and WCW, I remember Sting and WCW Seek and Destroy as his entrance music, and I just thought, wow, that's a great song. Like, who does that song? And then I bought Kill 'Em All by Metallica and listened to it. And then I think every week after that, I got given a packed lunch to go to school with, and I got given like £2 for like some dinner. And I was like, I could buy some dinner, or I can just eat the packed lunch, save the money, and buy a new Metallica album at the end of the week. And I did that until I had every Metallica album.
I was not a metal fan originally. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and I was pretty much strictly 80s pop. But I had a friend who was super into metal and he was super into Metallica. And I remember going around his house and he had Kill 'Em All and he would play Seek and Destroy. And it was like, this is such a good song. And then there was some kind of metal documentary at the time that was on like BBC Two. And I remember it had Metallica on it and they played this. And like your life changes at that point. So I know where you are with that song. I mean, the era of wrestling I like is way before that. And I think these days there's a lot more metal and there's a lot more hard rock in those entrance themes. It was more kind of a cheesy thing in the 80s wrestling that I like. But, but when that little light goes off and you hear this music for the first time, he also used to like One as well, another track that he introduced me to.
Great song.
Yeah, but like Seek and Destroy and One were, like maybe like my gateway into that world of music.
I knew exactly what Tim was going to say, so I had to let him have this because, first of all, Tim has talked a lot about wrestling on this podcast, and I cannot tell you guys about anything related to wrestling because I don't know. It's not my expertise, but I do understand why this would be like your intro and why it would be so important to you.
Yeah.
Hey, would you say that's your favorite Metallica album, or is there any others that are better for you at this point?
Honestly, it changes so much. I mean, I got asked this the other day, so I just started a new job, and the guy that's training me is into metal as well, and he likes Metallica and that, and he was like, "Oh, what's your favorite Metallica album? What's your favorite song?" And I was like, it changes all the time. It like bounces through a few because sometimes I want to listen to 80s Metallica, sometimes I want to listen to 90s Metallica like Load, Reload, sometimes the Black Album, although the Black Album's been very overplayed. So the biggest songs from that I'm not really a fan of anymore, like Enter Sandman.
But it's hard when you do like those songs and you don't want to be the cliche. You're like, I do like them, though, a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But at the same time, there's a lot of the Black Album which I think gets overlooked, which are the songs that aren't played much, like A Wolf and Man, God That Failed, Wherever I May Roam, although that has been fairly played because it has a video as well. So it's difficult to say. I love Garage Inc. as well, like all the covers they did. The thing that gets me about Metallica is the recent albums they've done, the production is so all over the place. Whereas that first disc on Garage Inc., where they recorded those new covers like Turn the Page, Whiskey in the Jar, the production is stunning. And if they'd only kept that and used that as like sort of a template for every album they did after that, it's like, right, this sounds amazing. Let's just use this.
Yeah, was it? Because like Bob Rock produced. Was it Bob Rock that produced the Black Album? Did he produce Garage Inc. as well?
I'm not sure if he did Garage Inc. to be fair, but I know that first disc with the new covers, it was standout sound wise. I mean, there's a cover of I think it's Blue Oyster Cult Astronomy on there, and it's so perfect the way, because it's got clean parts like lighter parts, and then it's got heavier parts as well, and the whole spectrum of sound they create on that cover is just stunning.
Yeah, I also like Stone Cold Crazy off that, and and they've played that live for years, but they had like the studio version on the Garage Inc. is superb.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on 72 Seasons?
Okay, so I didn't listen to it on Spotify or anything because a friend of mine had it on vinyl, and I thought, right, let's go around. Can I come around and then listen to this album on vinyl just so I can have the full experience? He was like, yeah, sure, come round. So we got a few beers and we listened to it. And I like it, but I've not really gone back to it since I've listened to it. I think there's one song which I really, really enjoyed from that, which is Lux Eterna, which basically is a Motorhead song. I thought that was great, but the rest of it hasn't really stuck with me that much.
Yeah, I went to the album launch party, if you like. They did it in cinema.
Awesome.
Yeah, they did it in cinemas. I don't know if it's the same in the UK, but they did it in cinemas
They did
here.
a thing, yeah.
Yeah. And they had like a video or a sort of video for all the songs. And I don't know, I sat there for the hour and 15 minutes or whatever it was. And I don't know, that album really connected with me. And I've really listened to it a lot.
Well, what I was going to say is we recorded our regular episode last night, and we were just talking about this album because it became number one. Weirdly enough, they went to the top of the Billboard charts in the last week or whatever for one of their, I don't remember. Do you remember what song it was, Tim?
Yeah, it was some song, that was popular way after the release date. And then it's gone to this number one on some rock chart or something. And it was
Screaming Suicide. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It became number one recently, and it's literally still trending. And I mean, I have mixed thoughts about the album, I think, as a whole, but I thought it was cool that they were able to do that.
Well, let's move on to the next song that you have on your set list or music that inspired you.
Okay, well, this isn't one that we do, but it's sort of quite an important song. It's Ticks and Leeches by Tool.
I'm a very casual Tool fan. I know some of their music, but I don't know it as well as Metallica say. What do you like about this song? What really connects for you?
So it's quite interesting because this song, I bought the album Lateralis after I saw the video for Schism, and this was obviously back in the day when you're still buying CDs. And I bought this album because I was like, this sounds like a cool song. And I put Lateralis on when I got home. Listened to the entire thing. I was like, oh, okay, that's a cool album. I took out the CD player and just sort of forgot about it for a couple of months. And then I had some songs come into my head and I was like, where have I heard this? What song is this? Where is this from? That's really going to annoy me. And then it suddenly clicks like, oh, it's from that Tool album I bought. And I stuck the album on again. I listened to the whole thing and absolutely fell in love. It was the only thing I listened to for months.
Yeah, you sometimes get that. You get a song that connects with you or an album that connects with you, and it's just on repeat, and you just sticks there, and you can't let it go.
And it was so strange because one of my good mates, Grant, he had the exact same thing with Tool. He listened to the whole album, an album. It might not have been Lateralis, it might have been one of the earlier ones, but he was like, "Yeah, I had a similar thing happen. That's kind of how I got into Tool as well." I was just like, "That's just so weird."
I'm going to ask a really weird question. Is this song really long? Is it in 7 to 8 minutes or something crazy?
It's 8 minutes, yes.
Okay, then I'm not crazy. I'm like Tip. I'm not necessarily a Tool connoisseur, but I do listen to some of their music. And I have a lot of their albums. I know a little bit about them, but I feel like this song is super long.
Yeah, there's quite a long, clean middle section, and there's a build-up that brings it back in.
I mean, that's not to insult it. That's just what I remember from it.
Yeah, Tool do like to be quite self-indulgent as well as having the absolutely mental music videos, which sort of haunted me when I was a teenager watching MTV2 late at night.
I mean, the name of the song is Ticks and Leeches. I don't want to watch that music video.
Well, this one didn't have a video, I don't think. It didn't become a single.
I remember it being where it talks about suck at the beginning, and then I remember it being really long, and I'm going to be honest, that's all I remember, everybody.
Have you had a chance to see Tool live in concert?
I have once, and hands down the best gig I've ever been to.
Yeah, I used to work with a guy who was super into Tool, and he went to see them, and he just said, I've been to lots of live shows, but they just really bring it.
Yeah, it was something special because they played Download back in 2006, and I had to miss that Download because of our family wedding. And I was gutted because Tool and Deftones were playing the same day, and I really wanted to see Deftones. I'd never seen them before. Tool were playing Hammersmith Apollo the following Monday after the festival, so I was like, right, I'll go to that. So I went to it. I think I might have even gone on my own. And it was just an unbelievable experience. Like, they were doing the whole playing along to music videos before that was actually a thing. And yeah, it was just jaw-dropping from start to finish. I came out feeling high from it, and maybe I'd inhaled some secondhand weed smoke, but like literally it was just an unbelievable experience.
You said it was at the Hammersmith Apollo Odeon or whatever it's called these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a good venue to see bands as well, because if you're at a Wembley, or if you're at I don't know where the other venues are these days, but something of that kind of size, you lose some of the intimacy. And like Hammersmith, especially if you're down on the floor, it's a good venue to see music at.
Yeah, agreed.
Some of the best concerts I've ever seen were they're very much like, and they could be really popular bands, but they're in a smaller environment. It really does make a weird difference. Tim's right, because you lose that intimacy. The weirdest thing, I know that you guys are not going to compare this to Metallica and everyone's going to judge me, but the one that I think of the most when I think about this is when I saw Good Charlotte. And I'm an early 2000s band lover. I love my pop punk music. And I went to a local venue, and Tim, I think you know what it's called. It's in Lynchburg. What is it called? Like D2 something or something weird.
I think it's D2, yeah.
Yeah, Tim has talked about it. But what was really interesting, as somebody who loves a lot of everything, pop, punk, everything, and I was this close to the artist, but like they're a mainstream artist that most people know, but being this close to them and just this small environment makes all the difference in the world. It really does. Like it affects the whole overall thing. You feel like you're a part of what the band is doing. Whereas when I love Elton John, but when I saw him, what am I in the sky up here, right? Like, I love it, but I might as well be flying in the plane that's doing security over it at that point. But it was great. But I appreciate, I know what Tim's saying. When you're in those the venue really can make or break the concert for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a good example of that was my previous job as promoter's rep.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that. That's what I was telling Tim before we started.
I worked a British Lion gig, which is Steve Harris from Iron Maiden's band, and that was in seeing him play in a 500 cap venue, and I got to meet him briefly as well and got a photo with him, which was great considering the first Iron Maiden album was one of my. I had it on cassette. I would stick it on cassette and walk to school while listening to it. So yeah, that was really quite special to meet him and see him in that environment. And the fact he was a nice guy as well. He came to the venue early, he was just hanging out. He had a massive minder with him, just in case. Because but this guy was also very friendly, but I was just I wouldn't piss this guy off.
Yeah, I mean,
I think he could snap me in two.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Harris basically is Iron Maiden, and I mean to see him in a venue of that size and get to meet him, and that is just so cool. I mean, he's such an iconic figure in rock and metal at this point.
Yeah, and for me, primarily being a bass player, I mean, yeah, he was a real icon to me. So yeah.
Do you play any other instruments in bass, or is bass your main?
I play guitar terribly.
I mean, that's fair.
And I did start on brass instruments as well. I played trumpet, tenor horn, and tuba. I kept getting moved up to larger instruments to the point where I got to tuba and I was like, you know what? I don't like lugging this thing about. So yeah, I'm out.
Tom, you sound very much like me. So when I was about 6 years old, I started the piano, and then I started in vocal lessons, and then I started trying to learn different instruments. I'm the world's worst drum player. If it's more than a 4-beat and we're playing Tom Petty, I'm out.
Oh yeah, I can't do drums either.
Because the problem is the responsibility is on you, right? And I'm about a half a second too far behind, so you don't want me as your drummer. We've talked about this. Tim can tell you, I'm the world's worst drummer. Yeah,
I've tried it, and I don't have the limb independence. Whereas I remember when I was about 17 or 18, I got in a band with this guy. He works for Riot Games now as one of their composers. He's an incredible drummer. One of the best I've played with and that I've seen. And how do you even comprehend that? That's just insane.
Like you were saying, like I can't sing and play at the same time if it's a half a second off. So I know what you're saying, Tom. But I was just curious. So I mean, I love that. Tim, I mean, you play the guitar, Tim. I don't, as far as I'm aware, you could play a good bass, but I don't know if you play anything else unless you could do a 4 count on the drums, I think,
I
right?
can play passable rock bass with a pick, but I don't think that counts.
If we put you on like Tom Petty basic hi-hat and snare drum, I think you can pull it off, right, Tim?
Maybe, but there we are. All right. What's the what's the next song that you have for us?
So staying with the Maynard James Keenan theme, it's not one that we do, but Three Libras by A Perfect Circle.
Now, I'm familiar with some of their material. It's kind of it's sort of proggy-ish.
Yeah, it's probably a bit more consistently heavy than Tool, but this song is a really sort of chilled and laid back song, and it's just a beautiful piece of music, and it's one of my favorite songs ever. It just hits me in places. I don't know. It's just one of them.
Do you find that when you're listening to music, I mean, obviously you're coming from more of a kind of a rock metal thing, but do you find that the softer music, the ballads connect with you better, or is it the heavier songs?
I think, yeah, well, it's a bit of both because I listen to the way I listen to music. I guess I listen to for different things and different songs. Like, if there's a really great vocal melody and a vocalist that I really like, then yeah, great. But otherwise, I like heavy grooves, like, heavy drums, etc. So it depends what I'm in the mood for, really, and sort of what I want out of music at that time. It's just a song I absolutely love. Probably one of my favorite songs ever. So yeah.
And is this something that you would consider covering in Number of the Beef?
Absolutely not. I don't think I could do any justice to it. Plus, there's extra instrumentation, which, to be fair, our drummer that we have in now, Andre, who I'm hoping stays for indefinite because he's an incredible drummer, but he's also a better vocalist than me, which is quite amazing because he can sing and play drums at the same time. And he has in-ears in all the time, and he always has like my vocal feed as well as his own going to his ears, and he's able to sort of pick out where I'm singing, and then he just harmonizes completely, and it's
Those people are frustrating, Tom, because like, how do they do it? How do they do it?
oh, it's amazing. It's truly it's such a pleasure playing with him because he always learns the song inside out, which from your drummer you need. Like a great example of this was recently we did a gig as a 4-piece because our new bass player Rodney couldn't make a gig. And I don't know if you've seen some of the songs we do, but we do Rusty Cage by Soundgarden. That song's a nightmare from start to finish, like near enough. But we played it at the club and honestly, it was a mess. Like guitar and bass were completely out of sync. And all I was doing, I was like, God, what do I do here? Because I was like, I can't make out what's going on. And then I was like, right, hang on. He does the sort of vocal grab leading into it. So I was waiting for him to do that. Once I heard him do that, I came in and I was like, right, we're going from here. And I spoke to him about it afterwards and he was like, well, yeah, I knew what I was doing was right. So it was just a case of everyone else getting in sync with me. And I just kept going. And I was like, that's just incredible. That is what you need from your drummer to know exactly where they're meant to be and what they're meant to be doing. And then everyone else needs to fall in.
Yeah, when you have someone with a skill set like that, it's really rare. I mean, I do hope that he's a forever friend of the band because you sent me your little spreadsheet of the various people that have been in and out the band. I mean, it reads like it's something from Spinal Tap, to be honest. I'm glad that you have hopefully a constant lineup now.
I mean, I keep having to ask people, like, is it me? Like, am I the problem here? Like, even like our ex-guitarist Matt, one of the founding guys, like I'm still good friends with him, and like this is band's t-shirt, by the way. But he left because he doesn't enjoy doing covers that much. He wanted to do original music, which is fair enough. But I just said to him, like, Matt, was I the problem? And he was like, no, mate, it wasn't you. I just wanted to like do my thing. But with the track record we've now had with the members we've had, I'm just like,
I just need to check and make sure I'm not doing anything here.
I think it's because I do generally ask quite a lot of the people in the band, like covering the songs we do. I mean, and I think some just kind of maybe get a little bit tired of it and the way that I kind of drill our rehearsals and stuff, because obviously with Download coming up, all we're playing now at practice is that set. So we're doing that next week. That's what we're doing. And I'm like, just, yeah, we're drilling these songs. I want you to be able to play these in your sleep. Because when it comes to day, there might be thousands of people there and you might shit your pants, but you will at least know that you know these songs.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that before. Like if we've like recorded demos and things with band, and you practice those songs, and you practice and you practice and you practice and you practice, and you can just do it till you can do it in your sleep.
I mean, what I think of is I've been in many shows, like as far as like plays go, because I'm a musical theater kid, and you spend the last 3 weeks before you go live, doing week after day after day after day after day, and it's the equivalent. Like you could do it in your sleep at that point, as Tim said. But what I was going to say about Three Libras and A Perfect Circle is I am a tried and true with Hypnosis girl who went to all of those pop punk kind of essence early 2000s. I have a very specific memory of this, Bob, and you'll like this story. So when they were at Warped Tour, A Perfect Circle has been in Warped Tour as an opening act, probably for, I think, Avenged Sevenfold, I think is what Charlie said it was.
Oh, okay.
They were opening for Avenged Sevenfold, early 2000s, right? A Perfect Circle. You know who I'm talking about. My husband, who is the weirdest person, but the best person you've ever met, decided he should it was either Avenged Sevenfold or A Perfect Circle. It was one of them. They were the same shot, right? He thought it was a good idea to body surf over everybody and the said Warped Tour. They stole his shoes, Tom, and threw them. And I remember him telling me he stayed after the set closed and tried to find his shoes because he knew his grandma. So my husband grew up with his grandma. I'm not going to get into that. It's a whole thing. But that's who was his guardian. And he remembered his grandma was going to be mad at him because they stole his shoes. And I still think of that when I think of Avenged Sevenfold and His Perfect Circle, because they were, I don't remember exactly how they were in Warped Tour, but they were either playing together, like they were linked right on the same stage, which I love both those bands. So I love that they were together and I love it for them. But I just remember Charlie telling me they took, that when he tried to body surf, they threw his shoes off. And he had to wait, and everybody laughed, and he tried to find him, and he said he only found one.
Oh, that's even worse than not finding them. Finding one, that's no good at all.
And he said his grandma was so mad at him because she had just paid for new shit. Charlie was probably like 15, 16 years old. And he said that he only found one shoe instead of both of them. And I still, when I hear A Perfect Circle, I hear Avenged Sevenfold. That's all I think of. Anyway, that is not related, but it's a great story.
There we are. Well, what's your next song? Hopefully there's no shoe loss in your next song.
Okay, yeah, Cupid's Dead by Extreme.
From, is that from Three Sides to Every Story?
Three Sides to Every Story, yeah, where they went quite proggy, yeah.
Yeah, I recently saw Extreme.
Oh, how were they?
They were absolutely fantastic. I saw them at a smallish venue in Roanoke, which is a town about 30 minutes from here. And we had very good seats. They were about...
Wait, is this the one I was supposed to go with you, Tim, and then I backed out?
Yeah, I offered Joy a free ticket, and then she... literally at the last minute, but that was beside the point. But we was about 6 rows from the front, and it was absolutely fantastic. I mean... I can't even comprehend how good Nuno is when you see him in real life.
Oh, literally. Just, oh...
I mean, one of the big albums I listened to growing up was Porno Graffiti, and you know that was played to death growing up. I remember when I bought the copy of that and listening to it, and then you get like Guitar World would have transcriptions in it and stuff, and of course, you know, more than words came out. But when Three Sides to Every Story came out, again, I loved that, and yeah, it gets a little bit out there, especially on the third side. But like Cupid's Dead is a solid track, and Warheads is a solid track.
Oh, Warheads is great, yeah. Our Father as well. It's a really nice. It's got almost sort of a Dream Theory sort of feel to it.
Yeah, it goes in that direction. I mean, are you familiar with the album that came out after that?
Is that Waiting for the Punchline?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I wasn't really into it. I tried. Yeah, I tried with it, but I was just like, don't really get this. Like, it wasn't for me.
I tend to draw into my things I like, things that are maybe not always the best ones that people like. I like Waiting for the Punchline, but also I like Van Halen 3 as well.
That's what I was gonna ask, because didn't what is his name? Jerry Sharon, he was part of Van Halen, right? In the late '90s to early 2000s. I'm not losing my mind here.
Yeah, I've heard the guys from my band talk about like Van Halen in that era and the fact that like Gary was just kind of a hired gun almost and didn't really sort of contribute much in terms of like songwriting and like telling Eddie no, which I think he needed.
Yeah, because the album Van Halen 3 is basically an Eddie Van Halen solo album. Michael Anthony is barely on it. And as you say, like Gary Sharon came in and he's like, wow, I'm in Van Halen. And Eddie said, you sing this. And that was...
I mean, to be fair, I probably would have been the same, everybody. Calm down.
Yeah, let's be fair.
So what is it about Cupid's Dead that you like? Is it just the track to have a memory?
Well, this was this a bit of an interesting story because I mean I love the song and we basically when Malefice were recording the first album, we got introduced to this by there's a UK band called Sixth who were big in like sort of the tech metal movement, and we recorded with two guys from Sixth, the guitarist and one of the lead singers. So they got two vocalists. And the guitarist, Dan, he introduced us to Extreme. And we're just like, oh, we don't really know Extreme. And he's like, wow, listen to this. And then he played us a load of Extreme, and it was just like, wow, the phrasing he's using and just like, you know, the technicality of like this band, you know, it's like, it's really something different. And it's just a real shame that, yeah, they got somewhere, but they deserve to be a lot bigger than they were. They're a severely underrated band, you know, in terms of like their overall popularity.
And the thing that got me when I saw them was how good how good their vocal harmonies are live. They shouldn't be that good, but they are. All of them that sing, it is perfect. And then the other thing is Pat Badger and Nuno Bettencourt. They are like as one. They're playing these riffs, and the pair of them are just so synchronized together.
Cupid's Dead is a great example of that in that middle section where it just, I still can't comprehend it.
Yeah, and I you know, Pat Badger, he's a bass player, plays with a pick, and maybe that's why he doesn't get the recognition. But like everything he does is so tight, and it's so well done with Nuno, and Nuno's locking with the drums, and it's just such a great unit.
Do any bass players ever get the recognition, Tim? Let's be honest.
Unless you're Geddy Lee or
Les Claypool,
Jaco Pastorius or Stanley Clarke.
But a lot of good bass players can like make the difference in a song, and they don't get the recognition they deserve. I said what I said because a good bass line can make or break a song. That's true. We all know that. Raise your hand if you don't believe that then you're lying. Because a good bass line is what we want in a song, right? And that makes or breaks a song. And I just don't feel like bass players get enough recognition. Tim's like, as a guitar player, he just rolls his eyes.
Also, it's worth mentioning as well, like, I saw Extreme live. I saw him on the Pornography anniversary tour. They played the Forum in London, and when they played More Than Words, literally they stopped playing and the crowd just carried on singing.
Yeah.
And then they just joined back in. It was like everyone who was there that night was 100% there for it. And like it was singing the whole venue start to finish. It was immense. One of the best I've ever been to again.
Yeah, well, what was funny is when I saw them, and they did the More Than Words, and they did Wholehearted and the acoustic songs as well as, and they played songs from all of their albums when I saw them recently. But the funny thing is, Nuno, between one of the songs, he says, okay, how many guitar players in the audience? And I looked round, and it was like 75% of the hands went up.
Of course there was. I remember when I was in one of my courses, I don't know, in college, university, if you're in the UK, but I remember we were talking about music, and they were like, how many people here like know a version of More Than Words or something like that, making a joke about college kids and Extreme. And like there was like Tim's right. It was like 70% of the freaking people in the audience were like, we know this song. Like it's just such a given.
Yeah, and it's a shame with Extreme, like you're saying, they didn't quite be the biggest band in the world, because like they had it with More Than Words, but More Than Words is a real anomaly in their catalog because they have a few acoustic-y tracks, but that the big power ballad, that all they have is that one.
Yeah, basically, that's what they got massive success with that, but then almost a one-hit wonder with that, unless you like know the band.
Yeah, I mean, Get the Funk Out was released as a single, but it didn't. Maybe it was a thing, but I mean, no, you ask a person in the street, they're not going to hear of Decadence Dance or...
Oh, I'd love to cover Decadence Dance so much, but I don't think anyone would know it. Like, that's the thing, like, I think if we were to do an Extreme cover, it'd have to be like Get the Funk Out or something, or maybe we could do More Than Words if we do an acoustic gig ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to do Get the Funk Out. So next song, I'm going, yeah, well, I'm choosing a Malefice song here, so I'm going for Dreams Without Courage because great memories of that song, playing it live, and it's one that we never released a video for, which I feel we should have done. But yeah, a lot of great memories playing that song. It's from our first album when like we sort of exploded after that and started doing some cool stuff. I mean, even though a lot of the times we played that song in the beginning was with a couple of problematic band members who were fired because of one reason or another, it's a song that still holds a lot of good memories. And like, it was really quite something for me getting back the final version of that album and hearing an album that I properly played bass on, which was going to be released and all that. And it was just quite a thing. Like, even now, it seems weird to me that I was walking into HMVs, like, you know, CD stores and seeing that album just out there for sale.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a band called Frequency with Ian Husbands, and
I've heard Frequency, yes.
Yeah, and we released an album. Now, it didn't get distributed into stores, but I was in a secondhand CD shop, you know, not long after it was released, and I saw a copy in the racks.
My example is so much stupider than everything you guys are saying, and I'm laughing because I've talked about this. So people who don't know, I started out in the church when I was little. I'm not in the church anymore, but I was in a band once that did get a recording contract. And I still can't physically say this without wanting to die, but we were called Gone Fishing. It hurts me to my core. And I remember one time walking into a Goodwill, which is just a thrift shop in America. If you're not familiar with Goodwills, it doesn't matter. Exactly. And somebody had put our t-shirts on there, and I still remember the anger that we felt. This woman who was trying to push all this stuff on us. Did you make us wear fisherman hats? Everybody in the band refused. But we had to wear these t-shirts, and they said "Gone Fishing, a Christian Tradition." And that's what our album that got cut said, and I still feel the cringe in my body. And I remember walking into a Goodwill and seeing somebody had put our t-shirt. Tim remembers this because if you listen to the episode of my twin sister Brady, we talk about how bad this was for us and the trauma we feel seeing the t-shirt that said "Gone Fishing, a Christian Tradition." I can't. It's not about being religious. And that whole thing was just a cluster. I'm sorry, guys. But that's the closest I have to you guys, and I can't not think about it anymore. And I refuse to wear a fishing hat ever again. And she tried to make us perform wearing fishing hats. I want everybody to know it's not going to happen. And now, as a nod, I'm not religious in any way. It's not to insult anyone who is religious. I just have to chuckle looking back on that moment. Tim has heard this story before, so it's not new to him, Tom. But anyway, when you guys were talking, that's all I could think about.
Well, I have a question. So during that era of the band, of that song, was that when you started touring and started supporting some really big acts?
Yeah, like that album released in 2007, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was '07. We started doing some like, you know, substantial stuff. And then 2008 obviously was the first time we played Download, which was, well, I mean, that was an unbelievable experience as it was, but I'll get on to that anyway, because there's a song I have coming up which links to it.
Okay.
But yeah, like that first album like really got us places and got us some massive recognition. Like some of the stuff we got, well, at the time was huge, and then yeah, it all seemed a bit of a dream, like, you know.
And what is the name of some of the acts that you actually supported when you was out touring?
So Devil Driver, God Forbid. In fact, my first show with Malefice was opening for Sepultura.
Oh wow!
Yeah, yeah. Like our manager came to practice. He's like, "Oh, I've got your first gig, mate." I was like, "Oh, wicked! What is it?" It's like, "Oh, you're opening for Sepultura at Islington Academy." I was like, "Can I have a warm up gig?" No. Okay. Right. Cheers. That, and then God, who else did we play with? Well, we played a couple of shows with Anthrax. One of which was on a boat, which was an odd experience.
Okay.
So you know Metal Hammer do that award ceremony, the Golden Gods.
Yes.
So they do the HMS Hammer, which goes down the Thames, which is basically, I don't know if they still do it, but when we did it, it was basically like a steamboat. And let me tell you, playing a gig on a boat, I don't want to ever do that again. Because with the shows we put on, obviously it's a lot of headbanging, like and all that. But the thing was, you go down for a full body headbang, and then you come back up. Suddenly, the center of gravity has changed. It's just like, what's going on? Like, I don't want to do that again. 'Cause it's like you come back up and you nearly go over backwards. And it's just like, nope, right, no, that's not happening again.
And I'm sure, depending on how big the boat is, if everybody's getting into it and headbanging and moshing and all that sort of stuff, it's going to slosh that boat about.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think there was a very select few people who got on there, and there's like I think a lot of people who managed to get on was via a contest. But also playing that day was Anthrax and Clutch on the boat, which was great.
Yeah, and Clutch are a great band.
Love Clutch. Love
To-
Clutch.
To be fair, Tom is in good company because remember we talked about Paul McCartney and Wings hated when they played on a boat too. But anyway, they had a whole thing where they talked about playing on a boat is not what you want it to be.
But if it's on a cruise liner or something like that, I mean, that's a little bit more rigid and stable. But if it's on a small boat, then yeah, like there's a recipe for disaster. Also, if you've got anyone in the band who's got seasickness, then you're not playing a gig.
Tim wouldn't be able to play. He'd be
No,
done.
I get terribly seasick. I've been offered gigs on boats before, but more like cruise liners type things. But even that, I'd get seasick on. So I've never gone down that path.
I remember doing the Irish Channel crossing when we did a tour years ago. So we had to go across and play Dublin and Belfast, and like that Irish Channel is just the worst. It's so choppy, and I just remember walking along on that ferry, and it's literally going side to side the whole way. I was just like, good God,
Yeah.
God, don't get seasick. But I mean, I was just seeing everyone else there just like trying to hold it in.
It's rough, but I mean, I'm sure when you're touring, you've got your bus, you've got your trailer, you've got your equipment. It's not practical to fly because you're going to be there with all your gear and all everything.
Oh, yeah, that's what we did. We were on a bus for that tour, and it was the most crowded tour bus ever because there was 3 bands, and like it was a double-deck tour bus, but most of the lower deck was basically a like equipment bay. So you had a staircase at the back, there was a lounge area, and then the bunks were 3 high. So your bunk was basically a coffin. It was like sort of that. I had a centre bunk, and I remember the way I had to get into it was like I had to walk past it and sort of Superman into it. And then once I was in, it was like, right, I'm not going anywhere.
See, I'm highly claustrophobic. That would not work. You guys are just going to have to tie me on top of the bus, like with a rope. That'd be better than putting me in that because I would have. So my thing is, me and Tim have talked about this. I cannot be, if I can't move, it's not going to happen. Not that's anything to do with the music, Tom. I will let you continue, but that's a no for me.
Yeah, but when you're touring, I mean, you sort of get what you're given and you get the bus and then you just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
If you have a little, no, Tim, I'm going to say no. They're going to tie me on the top of the bus as we run on down. I just have an image of like me on the Spice Girls bus with the Union Jack and me tied to the top.
I do remember touring on some nicer buses where the bunks were like quite considerably bigger. It was only 2 high and like,
Yeah, that's what I deserve, Tim. Come on, man.
But then there's also the realities of touring on a tour bus and really not as glamorous as people think. Like, I'd be loath to tell you the hot bag situation, but basically it comes down to not being able to shit on a tour bus.
Yeah, but I've heard that's a thing you do not do.
No, you do not do unless you are absolutely desperate. Yeah, let's not talk about that because it is disgusting, and I've experienced it.
Well, let's move away from that topic and let's talk about beautiful music, Tom. What else do you have for us?
Okay, so next song, "Clouds Over California" by Devil Driver. So when I was talking about like stuff we got like after releasing this first album, like we toured with Devil Driver and God Forbid, it was a massive tour for us because we got on there and we didn't really know what to expect, and Devil Driver were a little bit off with us.
Wait, I have to ask a question. Are you somebody's going to laugh really hard at this, Tom, and you're going to laugh too. Is Devil Driver the band, and then you said God forbid, like God forbid, or is God forbid another band?
God Forbid's another band.
They're another band.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like a phrase. Okay, continue. I want to make sure I wasn't missing that. Okay, continue.
We got that tour with them like through the UK, and I think we didn't really speak to Devil Driver for the first couple of dates, and then I think our vocalist had a altercation with Des from Devil Driver, and I don't know how much you know about Devil Driver, but Des was also in Coal Chamber, if you remember them.
I do remember Coal Chamber, yes.
Yeah, so he was in Coal Chamber as well, and he's a big presence, and he's like, then he watched our set, and he basically took Dale aside and chatted to him and was like, "You guys are fucking awesome." And there was another, we were opening that, and then this band that were above us, so this other UK band, they'd bought on to the tour. We'd bought on as well, but for not as much, hence why we were only opening. But after a few dates, Des turned around and was like, right, you're main support now. Like, you guys deserve it. And they started sharing their rider with us. And basically, I remember that tour, I drank so much alcohol. We all did. Like, I remember one day we pulled up at Manchester Academy. They weren't, the venue wasn't open, but they were like, oh, we got your rider, so here you go. So they gave us all our beer, and we drank it before loading. And I just remember Doc from God Forbid coming over, looking in and seeing all the empty cans, bottles. It's just like, you guys are fucking animals, man. And we just carried on drinking.
And see, in my mind, I'm like thinking of a writer as like, which M&M colors do you want? I'm such an innocent person.
Oh, we did that. We did that. Like, we did something like that. Like, so it's people put that in. Like, well, I mean, you guys obviously know why it's there. Like, it's so that, you know, to check that your rider's been read. But we did that with, like, we had this, like, inside joke about the Queen from, like, Aliens and that. So we requested a picture of the alien.
I know,
Queen,
but I'm so much more innocent. Like, I'm like, put yellow flowers in my room, and you're like, give me a bottle of whiskey before I walk in the door.
So did you get your alien queen?
We often did, yeah. And we were always really happy when we saw it. We never, like, kicked off when it wasn't there. But, like, when we saw it, it's like, oh, you've read it. Good.
What other venues did you get to play with them on that tour?
So that tour was, like, Manchester Academy, Stoke Sugar Mill. God, what London venue did we do on that tour? Shit,
So like the Astoria or something like that?
No, the Astoria had gone by that point. Fuck, where was it? I know one of their later tours we did with them, we did the Garage for 2 nights in London. I'm just trying to remember for that one. I think it might have been Islington. Yeah, it probably was Islington Academy. Did we do Glasgow? You know what? It's been so long I can't remember. In fact, I might be able to Google it.
Yeah, I mean, I've played in some larger venues, but not any sort of consistently on a tour like that. But even like at the level that I tend to get into, which is playing bars and clubs and stuff, it just becomes a blur after a while because you're doing it week in, week out. And you're traveling around, and then some places change their name or they close and they reopen. And you probably find this as a musician out there getting it done. People come up to you and they say, oh, I saw you when you played the so-and-so, and then the guitarist did this, and then you did that song, and then you played that thing for me because it was my birthday. And you have zero recollection of that.
Absolutely.
That makes complete sense because it's all just like one thing after the other. Now, I don't have exact examples, but like I've been in shows where I've done, like I was like in Cats for like 2 years straight. And like I have no recollection of any of that. Like it all just is a blur. Everybody is the thing is, everybody thinks they're super unique when they're the audience, but let's be honest, it's all the same over and over and over.
Did you find the venue you played?
Yeah, I found it. So there's actually an old news article from saying like Malefice tours UK with Devil Driver, God Forbid, and I forgot we did a date in Belgium with them as well. So we did Hoftelo and Antwerp, and then otherwise the other venues we did on that tour: Wedgwood Rooms in Portsmouth, which was an awesome venue. I'm not sure if it's still going. Soundhouse in Northampton, Rescue Rooms in Nottingham, Club Academy in Manchester, Rio's in Leeds. Absolutely loved Rio's, fantastic place. Yeah. Sugar Mill in Stoke, Islington Academy, The Point in Cardiff, which was an old converted church, which was great. Then, yeah, final date was Central Station in Wrexham.
As an American, I have no idea what any of the words you just said were, but I'll take it for sure. Go ahead.
I can tell you they are great venues for certainly for hard rock metal. They are all of those are great venues.
They all just sounded like, what did I tell Tim one time? Why does everything in the UK sound like it's a piece of candy?
Delicious Wrexham.
No, Tim, that sounds wrong in like every language. But anyway, moving along.
I also remember that tour, we because we were drinking so much like every night. You know, do you remember when the Nintendo DS came out, there was that brain trainer thing you could do? Like, it was like a game for it, which would tell you like you could do IQ tests and stuff. And I remember there was one set up in a game that we went to, like when had some time off. I think we all did it, and all our brain ages were like 70 or 8 years old. We'd absolutely killed ourselves with alcohol that tour. And we just sort of looked at it and we all just went, oh God, what have we done?
It's very metal, right, Tim?
It's got to be done. I mean, it was our first massive tour, and yeah, we did it the right way.
There we are. Well, I'm glad to hear it. All right. What have you? What's another song that you have for us?
Okay, so not one from our set, but Top of the World by the Wild Hearts.
Are they still around the Wild Hearts?
Well, I worked one of their last shows, which was at Sub 89, and it was a very odd atmosphere. Well, what should I say? It was one of the last shows of the original lineup. It was very odd, and the set list I found was very strange, and like there was just an overall odd vibe about them that day. And then not long after that, they did split. But Ginger seems to have got the Wild Hearts back together with a new lineup because Ginger cannot stop doing music, and nor should he. He's a fantastic musician, written some incredible songs for the Wild Hearts and all that. This song basically, it was sort of a soundtrack to Download 2008. Because like after playing it, I just listened to this song and I was like, yeah, this is where I pretty much am at the moment. But then the Wild Hearts also played that Download. So on the Sunday, I think they were one of the last bands I watched before we left. And I remember Ginger was just off his nut, just talking bollocks between songs like, oh, you're such lovely people. It's such a lovely festival. And then I remember like someone chucked an egg at him and he managed to catch it and it didn't break, but then he put it down and it smashed.
Actually, I have a question for you. I have a story about this too, but when you're up there performing, have you ever had something thrown at you like an egg or a bottle or something?
I'm not sure if we've properly ever had anything thrown at us. We observed some very strange things while we were playing, but I don't think anything has actually been thrown and hit me while we were playing. But one of the weirdest things I do want to share is the fact we played, I think it was the Fighting Cocks in Kingston, and some guy turned up in the front row with a bowl of ice cream. And like, our vocalist, Dale, was like, turned around like, are you eating a bowl of ice cream? Yeah. And he was like, why? It's like, why not? It's like, you know what? Yeah, why not?
I think I've played the Fighting Cocks in Kingston. Is that sort of around the back of the one-way system?
Possibly. It's not very big.
It was a band like a number of years ago that I was in, and it sounds very familiar.
Yeah, it's sort of that and the Peel in Kingston, which were like the main ones there, weren't they?
Yeah, I played the Sir Robert Peel. I played them many times. I saw the Hamsters in there as well.
Oh, wow.
We've talked many times on this podcast about like what you would do if someone throws something at you. And see, this is why I would never make it. Because if someone threw something at me, Tim knows you'd be bailing me out because I'd probably be jumping in the audience ready to choke them. Like I just feel like my anger would come out twofold.
Yeah, I played Santa Pod, Bug Jam, not Freak Jam. That was something different. Bug Jam. It was VW Beetle Festival at Santa Pod. And it was the Glastonbury B stage. So to give you an idea of the kind of size of the stage, and there's maybe 6,000 people in the audience. We were supporting Chaz and Dave.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we supported Chaz and Dave, and then we played after Chaz and Dave, as you do. And we were playing like an acoustic type thing because that's what they wanted. So, we're just playing away. And it was in the set after Chaz and Dave. And I saw like this 2-liter Tango orange bottle, which was half full of Tango orange, coming towards me, sort of spinning in the air in slow motion. And it was coming up towards my head. And I sort of ducked to one side and this Tango thing flew behind me.
I feel like there was a recent thing where like Nicki Minaj got hit in the face with a ice drink and she like yelled at the person and she got in trouble. That would be me. You guys would be fishing me out of the because I feel like the problem would happen is if something hit me in the head, the anger. See, my problem would be the anger would rage and I'd be up here and I would just instantly duck at that person. You guys would be pulling me out. I'm just telling you right now. That's how I end up in jail.
Well, the problem is, as Tom will tell you, when you play bigger stages, the distance between the front of the stage and where the audience begins is large. It's not like a pub where you can just sort of jump out and if you wanted an altercation, you could have it.
I know, but I would still be on the mic like, who did it? What do you want? Like, you guys don't get it. I would see red. It would be so bad. I think about this often. If someone hit me in the head with a soda bottle, Tim, it's all out. You guys would have to figure out how to put the euros and the USD together and bail me out. Anyway, what's your next song, Tom?
So next song, Uplift by Pantera.
Before you get into saying about the song, what's your thoughts on the current Pantera tribute tour with the...
I never got to see Pantera. Basically, the closest I got to seeing Pantera was... I was at Download 2004. Damage Plan played, whilst Benny was still alive and that. And I went to see the Black Dahlia murder in the tent at Download 2004 with about 100 other people. And it was great. Then I came out of the tent, and as I did, Damage Plan started playing Walk, and I basically ran to the main stage to watch it because I was just like, this is might be the closest I get seeing Pantera, and yeah, saw that, and it was amazing. But my thoughts on the current lineup are, well, they're playing a Download, and I've got a pass, so I'm going to try and see it because I've seen videos of the lineup as it is now, and it sounds great. It sounds like they're doing a really, really great job of it. And I mean, as much as I didn't think, well, I knew Charlie Benante was a great drummer, but I was unsure about the choice of having him buying the kit. But Jesus, he's nailed it.
Yeah.
Like, it's down to like the actual choice of kit as well, like the sound and all that. It's like, it's just Vinny's sound that he's managed to get out of it. And yeah, it's stunning. And I mean, there's no guitarist who would be better for it than Zakk Wylde, really.
Yeah, because Zakk was a best buddies with Dimebag,
Yeah.
and I saw a rig rundown of the equipment, and he's actually using some of Dime's gear to, again, like you're saying with the drums, trying to get the exact sound.
Yeah, it's an emulation near enough, but unlike, amp modelers and all that, it's just his actual stuff. So yeah, you can't get much more genuine than that, really.
I would be very interested to see that. I never saw Pantera. That was also the time, I was saying earlier about my friend was introducing me to rock and metal and stuff like that. And I sort of buy these US guitar magazines and they would talk about Pantera. And as a result, I got Vulgar Display of Power. There's something about that music. It's just like bashes you in the head when you listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're doing it the right way. It sounds great. And everyone I know that's seen Pantera since... all that said, it's incredible. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that's. Aside from playing, that's going to be one of my highlights of Download is basically catching Pantera's set. I think we're going to be going home Thursday night, and then I'm going to come back especially just to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, it was tragic what happened, to the members of Pantera. I mean, it was absurdly tragic. But I mean, like you say, it's a celebration of that music. So getting back to the track that you picked out, what's special about that track to you?
So I don't know, like this one is from Reinventing the Steel, the last album, which a lot of people sort of turn their nose up a bit, but it's a great album, and this is like sort of one of the deep cuts from it. It's one of those that I just can't understand why it's not more popular, because it's got such a great groove to it, and like, it's got a real sort of drive forward, and like, yeah, it's just a great track. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, there's not really much else behind it for me. I just remember it's one of theirs I've listened to the most.
Yeah, I was in the Hard Rock in Paris years ago, and they have a Dean ML guitar on the wall, and it's not the number one Dimebag guitar, but it's like the number 4 Dimebag guitar. And I remember taking a picture of it, and I looked it up because I thought, oh, it's just something they got stuck on the wall. But when I looked it up, it was actually, no, this is stage played. This is a real thing, and to just to be that close to something that he had was really cool.
Well, and there's just so much history there in general. Like, even if you're not a fan of Pantera, like, everybody knows the story at this point, right? Like, it's just such an iconic piece of history.
Yeah, I still remember. I remember that day. Like, I remember I was at college, and someone turned around and was like, "Oh, Dimebag's been shot." I was just like, "What the fuck?"
Well, and then like the weirdest, like it's just the weirdest story. Like a nightclub, you know what I mean? In Ohio, we just happened to be there. Like it's just a weird. I don't know if Ohio's the right thing. That's just what comes to mind. But you know what I'm saying? Like he was just playing.
Yeah.
Such a personality, such a figure in the rock and metal scene. Everybody loved him. Everyone wanted to party with him, and he was just some deranged fan.
I mean, his name was Dimebag.
Well, he actually in guitar magazines he was originally Diamond Darrell.
Yeah, from the 80s.
Yeah. Originally, you'd hear about Diamond Darrell in all these interviews.
Pantera.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he was Dimebag.
Well, a successful rebrand from the 80s Pantera, because, I mean, yeah, those 80s Pantera albums are very hard to find.
What's another song that you have for us?
Okay, got a Clutch song now, Cypress Grove. Another song that I just really love.
They are such a good rockin' band. Have you had a chance to see them?
I have, yeah, and the thing that annoys me about Clutch is the fact their set lists are different every night. So I've seen it on their social media, they post their set lists, and I look at it, I'm just like, oh, wow, they've got a lot of my favourite songs in the set tonight. And then I see one for the next, I'm just like, I know 3 songs from this. And like, I caught them at the Coco in London, and then I think I caught them at a download I went to as well. And I've seen like quite a lot of my favourite songs, but I've not seen them play Cypress Grove yet.
Is that sort of their trademark? They like to mix it up so you get all different songs like that?
It appears so, yeah. So, I mean, when they next come over, I think what I'll have to do is maybe see like 2 or 3 nights of their shows in a row, and then maybe I'll see like, all my favourite songs, and maybe I'll finally see them play Cypress Grove. Because it seems that that's the way they do things.
You was out touring with your other band. Did you typically just play the same set, or did you like to mix it up too like that?
Yeah, we sort of stuck to a lot of the same songs. So I think, we didn't often drop in ones we didn't know or hadn't played in a while. So we sort of like just heavily rehearsed one set to do, and then we had a half hour, we had a 45 minutes, and then we had like a 50 to an hour set as well. But yeah, we didn't really stray too much from like what we had.
Yeah, well, I suppose you have production, you have lights, you have sound, you have things like that going on where if you're mixing it up too much, it throws all the rest of the crew out.
Yeah, well, we didn't really have much crew at that point. It was more just making sure that we knew the songs and put on the best show we could, because we knew we could play these songs the tightest, so these are the ones we did. Might have also been somewhat restricted by some band members not being able to play as well as they should have, but yeah, whatever.
It's all rock and roll,
As the world's worst drummer, some of us, Tom, need some extra help, okay? If it's more than a 4 count, I'm not helping you.
To be fair, I think we did overstretch with some of our songs as well, like what we actually put on the record, and then just been coming back to playing it. It was like, how did we do this?
And that's the other thing is that especially if you're in a support thing like that and you've got 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes to do, is to make your statement, get in, get out, and put on the best show that you can. And you get, I'm predominantly playing cover bands, and you have the luxury of playing the first set's an hour and a half and the second set's an hour and 3/4 and all that stuff. And you can play everything you want. But in that kind of situation, you have to come in, you have to make an impact. It has to be the best you can be, and you're in and you're gone. Okay, Tom, do you have another song for us?
Finally going back to some number of the Beef set now as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, Man in the Box, Alice in Chains. Yeah, so currently for this set of download, we've been doing Them Bones. We've been doing that for a while because it's part of the theme of the set. But Man in the Box was one of the songs we sort of jammed initially. And I'm planning to bring it back to our sets sometime soon. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just a really fun song to sing, and one that I really enjoyed doing.
It's got a great driving riff all the way through. I mean, Jerry Cantrell, I think he's probably an underrated guitar player, certainly in the guitar community. He doesn't get a lot of kudos like your Eddie Van Halen's and all that kind of stuff. But I mean,
vocalist as well.
Yeah, that's the thing about him.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite songs, like, in general. And I know it's cliche. Everyone's going to be like, oh, of course you like Alice. Everyone's like, oh, name one other Alice in Chains song, which I can. Rooster, Rotten Apple. But with that being said, I do love this song specifically.
Yeah, it's a great song. Yeah, it's one of their best by a mile.
Yeah, and there was a time when we had MTV at home, back when MTV, like regular MTV Europe, was playing music videos.
Yeah, MTV2, VH1, yeah.
All that stuff. And this was one of those videos that was on heavy rotation at that time. I remember when it was out.
I mean, if you can't be like, I'm a man in the box and not feel that, like, I don't think we could be friends. It's just a great intro. It's a really good intro to a song.
Did you hear that Jerry Cantrell's #1 guitar with the robot woman on the front, he thought it got stolen?
I didn't hear this, no.
He thought it got shipped off somewhere and it disappeared, and then he thought it got stolen, and he put a whole thing up on Instagram and stuff saying, his #1 G&L guitar was lost forever and stuff. And then it turns out that it was just shipped somewhere that it was not supposed to be, and then he got it back. But for a couple of days, the guitar community were coming together. It's like, oh no, his #1 guitar is gone.
That's hilarious. That's kind of embarrassing, though. I would be embarrassed when it all came into.
Like, oh, I just lost track of it. Yeah, sorry. I remember seeing Alice in Chains not long after they'd released Black Gives Way to Blue. And it was at a Sonisphere festival. I can't remember if it was one I played or if I was just attending, but I was there with my mate Grant, who's a sound engineer. And they started playing, and like we heard the vocal harmonies, and we're just like, good God, these are perfect. And he was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to Sound Tower, and I'm going to check if there's like a harmonizer running on this, because this is ridiculous. And he literally, because he had, well, it must have been a year we played, because he had a pass, like an artist pass, because he was with us. And he literally went to the sound tower and looked at the sound desk, and he was like, he came back and he was like, nope, no harmonizer, that's all them. I was like, wow, that's just fucking ridiculous.
You know, it's sort of got the hard rock metal music. You don't think there would be good harmonies, but you know, a lot of musicians in this genre of music are so incredibly skilled.
But I mean, Stanley and Control, like they have very nice harmonies together. Like if you were to isolate those vocals and just hear what they're saying, it's great. Like even in this song in and of itself. But I have did you guys know that this song was about like something about they went to a dinner and the people from the record company were vegetarians? Did you guys hear this story or am I going crazy? So from what I heard was basically there was a story about they went to dinner and they were like, and I am a big fan of this song, Man in the Box. This is the only reason I know this is probably pop-up music video for VH1. We've talked about this many times. Tim knows what I'm saying. But there's a story about basically they went to eat dinner with Columbia Records, which is their record company, and they were all vegetarians and they were told about how the veal was made from calves in small boxes. And the vegetarians were very upset about this. And supposedly that's where the Man in the Box story comes from. Am I crazy? Has no one ever heard this? Am I making this up? I don't know. It's fine. Google it later.
I've not heard this, but I mean, I can't refute the validity of it. So
Google it later. I may be a VH1 story, but I watched the whole thing where they talked about like basically they were with these vegetarians who were eating and they were asking about the veal and they made a comment about the veal being in small boxes with calves or something. And he says that he went home and wrote the lyrics. I don't remember who wrote the song. Was it Stanley? Whoever wrote the song. He wrote the song and said that, like, basically it's about being in a box.
Well, there we are. Okay, well, let's...
Wow, I don't think anyone believes me, and now I want everybody to Google it because it's true.
Well, Joy, as soon as this podcast finished, we're going to Google this and we'll put this one to rights.
It's not fake. I did not make that up off the top of my head. Somebody put that on Wikipedia once, and now I'm never going to live it down. It was probably some fake guy who added it to the thing. I'm never going to hear the end of it. But it's true. They went to dinner with vegetarians.
Well, Joy, I will let you have that. And we're going to hand over to Tom, who has another song for us.
okay, so Number of the Beast next.
I mean, obviously, you have to have that. I mean, you're the name of your band is Number of the Beast, so how could you not have Number of the Beast?
Just, the regret I feel naming this band this and then realizing, oh, we've got to do this every gig now. Oh, God. I think it was worse like when we had our original drummer, Will, who's an incredible drummer, but he plays everything 20 BPM too fast. So imagine Number of the Beast, but 20 BPM faster, and then imagine trying to do the vocals for that, and how much of a sprint the basically first two verses and choruses are. And basically, you've not got room to like take a breath because, yeah, it's a bit faster.
Yeah, and plus it wouldn't chug right. I mean, the whole thing with Maiden is it's got the tempo and the beat is what makes Maiden. If you're playing it 20 BPM too fast, it just wouldn't have that.
I mean, it was very funny. Like my mate Grant, like come along to our gigs, and it was just hilarious trying to see you keep up with these songs. Like when you just can't do it. I was like, yeah, and it feels like it as well. I was just running out of breath all the time, and like I think once he left, and like we started auditioning drummers, and we played Number of the Beast with this guy Jim, like one of the guys we auditioned, and he started playing it, and I was like, wow, this is slow. And I was like, oh no, hang on, this is the actual tempo. Oh my God, I can breathe. And like over time, I didn't used to do the scream at the start, like, after the intro finishes, because I couldn't find a way of doing it. But over time, I've sort of worked out how to actually do it. So I do that now. I think I've been doing it for about a year or so, whereas I used to just leave it before and just sort of like stand back, whatever. But yeah, I think if you do that song, you do need to do the scream, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bit that sort of starts it off before it starts galloping away.
Yeah, basically, I think I tail it off like a second or two before it does on the record, just so I can sort of like go.
Yeah, get your breath.
Yeah.
Was this Bruce Dickinson?
So a lot of the stuff in Number of the Beast was written for Paul Di'Anno. I love Paul Di'Anno as well. I love the first two Maiden albums. They're probably my favourite. But like, I'm not sure if it was this that was written for him or. But I know from speaking to our drummer, like Run to the Hills, that it's got two different harmonies in the well, sort of almost counter melodies even the chorus, and the lower one that you hear is actually written for Diano. Whereas
Okay.
the one that Bruce does, where he soars over the top, like that's what he does. But then they kept the original like melody down there at the bottom as like a harmony.
Bruce Dickinson, he is such an amazing man. He's what they call him a Renaissance man because like he flies commercial 747s for British Airways. He beat cancer. He is a Olympic fencing champion, and he's in Iron Maiden. And there's probably and he speaks like four languages fluently.
Of course, why doesn't he?
Why wouldn't he? I mean, what are you going to tell me next? He also jumped off of the Grand Canyon and lived.
I've got a couple of Maiden live albums, and they pull tracks from different gigs that they've done.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was one in like Italy or Spain or something, and he's addressing the audience in perfect Spanish and Italian.
Wow. Okay. Well, that is very impressive because we never did that when Malefice was going. All right, we're Malefice. We're from England.
Well, when you perform this song, do you say "Number of the Beast" or "Number of the Beef"?
Well, there were a few ideas that went around for this. Like, there was one idea that during the guitar solos, I should grab a burger and eat it. But yeah, I've not rewritten the lyrics or anything. I think we've got T-shirt ideas because I started out when I started doing vocals properly. I brought lyric sheets along, and I got told like fairly quickly, it's like, oh, you should leave the lyric sheets; it will help you remember it better, which it does. But even now, after I've been doing these songs a while, like one of our recent gigs, I managed to forget the first two lines of the second verse of "Fight for Your Right" by the Beastie Boys. And all I did was, it sounded like I was having a stroke because I just made noises with my mouth. And unfortunately, there is a video. I've not let it see the light of day because I'm just like, oh my God.
As a fellow vocalist, the worst part is when you are singing just the wrong verse because it'll sound the exact same. Everything will sound so similar, and you think you're right on the money, and you realize I'm singing
at least
three
you're saying
verses.
words. At least you're actually singing words. I literally just made absolute gibberish. I did not make words. I made noises with my mouth.
Stop! You're gonna make me cry. That's
And I was
hilarious.
just there, just like, oh my God, am I literally having a stroke? What is going on? And then I remembered the last two lines, and I was just like, oh, right, okay, I'm back in the room now. And then after the song, like, Craig, like, just turned around and was like, it's all right, Tom, I don't think anyone noticed. I was like, well, I did now.
Well, how drunk was everyone in the audience? Because they were pretty drunk. They probably
But they were
didn't
pretty
notice
drunk at the
Tom.
time, so yeah. But I do remember looking around and, like, a lot of people looked very confused. As was I.
All right, Tom. How about Tom? I'm sorry, Tim. How much time do you think we have left for? Do you think we got like two more songs?
Let's do two more songs.
Okay, can we make it three? Because I want to put in one extra to annoy Saz.
All right, there we go.
Okay, next one, Cult Personality, Living Colour, which is one we do. Like when I started Number of the Beef, quite quickly I was like, I want to do this song. Pretty much everyone turned around and just went, this song's a nightmare. It's like, I know, but we're capable of doing it, so let's start learning it and see where we get. And I think it must have taken us a year or thereabouts to get it to like 90%. We still played it at gigs like when it was around like 80%, but it's got to the point now where I think when Matt, the original guitarist, left, John came in, who we'd had fill in for us at gigs before, and he already knew how to play the song, so it's like, oh, well, perfect.
Is there a reason, though, specifically you were so keen on wanting to play this song?
Because no one does it, because it's a tough song. It's a really tough song, like instrumentally. Like vocally, it's pretty easy.
Well, yeah, a lot of the living color with, I would think it's not that hard vocally.
Yeah. So I was pretty adamant about doing it because it's a great song. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to sing as well. But people just don't expect it.
No, because I mean, like Vernon Reid's guitar playing on this is so all over the place. When I saw Extreme, Living Colour were actually supporting them.
Yeah, I wish I'd seen it because they did the same tour in the UK.
To see him perform Cult of Personality right in front of you was amazing. I mean, to the casual listener, it just sounds like a flurry of nonsense. But when you actually listen to it properly, especially as a musician, you can work out what he's doing. There's so much going on.
Well, I worked a Living Colour gig because I played at one of the venues I worked at. And seeing Vernon Reid's pedalboard, it was like fucking launch control.
Yeah, it was the same when we saw him. He had two half stacks, and then he had this like arc of pedalboard in front of him.
But yeah, it's a great song to do, and like it's one that I personally like. I really enjoy. It's sort of like it's kind of a party song, and just like when we get to that point in our set, I'm just like, yeah, I know I can nail this one. I have a lot of fun doing it. So yeah.
And again, that was another one that I used to listen to in the classic era of watching MTV because the video for that was on like strong rotation when that song came out.
But yeah, it's like when you start looking at the actual playing and all that and what guitar and bass have to do.
Isn't it always the way you look and you're like, you're like, I love this song. Wait, you mean to tell me that the time signature is 1847?
Yeah, and it just sort of, there's some overlaps and like odds repetitions and all that. And then the like sort of pre-chorus lead up with those like sort of runs on the guitar and bass, which are, yeah, they're pretty difficult. So I've tried learning it myself on bass as well. And I'm just like, well, I'm glad you boys have to play it and not me.
Yeah, you in this particular song, you've got the easy thing to do.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it's sort of a running theme, and it runs into my next song choice as well, which is Rusty Cage by Soundgarden, which I'm pretty sure is why Matt, our original guitarist, left. Because he's a phenomenal guitarist, but he did not get on with this song at all. He protested quite a lot about doing it because the whole syncopation and the way it's laid out is a nightmare, and I'm fully aware of how difficult it is as a song. But yeah, I think he sort of hated it quite a bit.
Yeah, it's funny that like Soundgarden sort of get lumped into that sort of grunge movement because a lot of like Nirvana and bands similar to that were very simplistic in nature, whereas like Soundgarden's music is very complex, or some of the songs are very complex.
The outro to Rusty Cage, that whole section is off the wall. When we were learning it, like none of the guys could get it, and I was literally like, right, I've listened to this song a lot, and I know where that riff pattern starts and ends. All you need is the start and end of it. You need to know where those are. Once you know that, you can do it. Because once you've learned where they are and where you are in the riff, you'll be able to, if you mess up a bit, then you will just know where you need to be back in at. And we've managed to get that pretty much spot on now.
Is this a song that goes over really well when you play gigs?
Yeah. It's one that, again, people don't usually expect, but when they hear it, they're like, oh, okay. But again, this is also in the set for download.
I mean, I'm a Soundgarden fan, but you're right. Their music is almost like it's one of those things that you hear on the radio, you're like, that doesn't sound so bad. And then you pick up the tabs and you're like, never mind.
I could play that. I just don't want to.
Yeah, I can easily figure out what those notes are. But you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You hear a song and it's deceptively hard, and you're like, that sounds so easy. You click the tabs, you're like, never mind, we'll worry about that next week.
Well, one song I wanted to try doing it down at Freak Jam was The Day I Tried to Live by Soundgarden, because basically I've got a collection of songs, like there's a few Soundgarden songs I try and do, but as a vocalist, I just try and every now and again I just put them on and it's like, right, I'll try and sing this, and then I usually fail because it's Chris Cornell and it's ridiculous. But then a little while ago, I was able to sing this.
He has a very distinct voice too. It's hard to like match his tone.
It's his tone and just sort of like the timbre and everything. But I was able to do it, so I said to them, "Can we do The Day I Tried to Live?" And Andy Bradley just turns around to me and is like, "This one's not really one you can just turn up and do." I was like, well, it's only a bit of 7/8 into 4/4, alternating every bar in the verse. What's the problem? And he's like, yeah, but the whole guitars are tuned to E and B. Like, every string is E and B. I'm like, yeah, but you can do it in standard.
Let me tell you, Andy Bradley is an absolutely fantastic guitarist. He's also an amazing singer, but it's not the kind of song that even Andy Bradley could blag straight off at the jam.
No, I know that Rob McGregor, like, do you know Rob, like drummer?
Yeah.
Like he knows it apparently, so he could drum it. But I think it's not the drums would be like a pretty big bit of it. But yeah, I think maybe it's a little bit too ambitious to just turn up the jam and do. Maybe I'm just gonna have to get the guys.
It's because they need Timo Sullivan there to just play on spot. That's what it is. I think you have one more song, right,
Yeah,
Tom?
last one. So yeah, this is one that I put in just specifically to annoy Saz. I remember when I first started seeing her, I went to a Jen Baven Badley gig was at the Faulkner's Arms in Fleet, and it was one of those showcase nights, and this band were playing, an all ukulele band,
Okay.
and they're called Rocket Kings. The song's called Space Camp, and they played this song, and like literally, it's been stuck in both of our heads ever since, and we just annoy the hell out of each other with it because at some point, like I just remember, like over the time, like, we were just like, I've turned around to her and just been like, Saz, you got something to tell you? She's like, what? Oh, we're going to space camp. She's like, oh, you fucker. Because it's so catchy. And like literally the night of that gig, like, after we heard that, we kept singing it to each other like the rest of the night. I was just like, oh God, what have they done? What have they done?
Well, it's your song now. It's your song.
Yes, it technically is.
Well, I actually saw the British Ukulele Orchestra in Blacksburg about 3 months ago or something like that, 2 months ago, and it was really, really good. But they did not play that song, I can tell you.
Guys, as a ukulele player, you guys underestimate us. We're cool.
It's a great song, honestly, and like, yeah, like, but just don't listen to it because it will be embedded in your brain for a long time.
Okay, well, Tom, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and just before you go, just tell us again about your appearance at Download.
So, yeah, we'll be on the Doghouse stage around lunchtime on Thursday the 13th. Our set is themed on the Radio X radio station from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. So, yeah, we'll be playing Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Guns N' Roses, Faith No More, Jane's Addiction, and plenty of others. Again, I'm just bewildered. We managed to get it, and like that it's come so out of the blue. It's it's going to be wild. And my fourth time playing, personally.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the success in the world with that. And if people wanted to connect with Number of the Beef, is there a website that we can go to?
Yeah, we got a Facebook. Just search Number of the Beef on there, and then our Instagram is just at Number of the Beef.
Well, I was going to say social media, but Tim's 100 years old, so he said website.
It's the same thing, potato, potato.
Well, there we go. Well, thank you again, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, guys. All the best. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.